Marriage Guidance Council. Malcolm and Barbara Harris have been married for nearly 15 years. They've got 2 children, Gary, aged 13, and Andrea, who's 11. During the last couple of years, Malcolm and Barbara haven't been very happy. They argue all the time. Barbara's sister advised them to go to the Marriage Guidance Council. There is one in most British towns. It's an organisation which allows people to talk with a third person about their problems. This is their 3rd visit, and Mrs. Murray, the counsellor, always sees them.
Ah, come in, Barbara. Take a seat. Is your husband here?
Yes, he's waiting outside. He didn't want to come here this week, but, well, I persuaded him to come.
I see. How have things been?
Oh, much the same. We still seem to have rows all the time.
What do you quarrel about?
What don't we quarrel about, you mean? Oh, everything. You see, he's so inconsiderate.
Go on.
Well, I'll give you an example. You know, when the children started school, I wanted to go back to work again too. So I got a job. Well, anyway, by the time I've collected Gary and Andrea from school, I only get home about half an hour before Malcolm.
Yes?
Well, when he gets home, he expects me to run around and get his tea. He never does anything in the house. And last Friday, he invited 3 of his friends to come round for a drink. He didn't tell me to expect them, and I'd had a long and difficult day. I don't think that's right, do you?
Barbara, I'm not here to pass judgment. I'm here to listen.
Sorry. And he's so untidy. He's worse than the kids. I always have to remind him to pick up his clothes. He just throws them on the floor. After all, I'm not his servant. I've got my own career. Actually, I think that's part of the trouble. You see, I earn as much money as he does.
Malcolm, I'm so glad you could come.
Hello, Mrs. Murray. Well, I'll be honest. Barbara had to force me to come, really.
Does it embarrass you to talk about your problems?
Yes, it does. But I suppose we need to talk to somebody.
Barbara feels that you resent her job.
I don't know. I would prefer her to stay at home, but she's very well qualified, and I encouraged her to go back to work. Now the kids are at school, she needs an interest, and I suppose we need the money.
How do you share the housework?
I try to help. I always help her to wash up, and I help Gary and Andrea to do their homework while she does the dinner. But she doesn't think that's enough. What do you think?
I'm not here to give an opinion, Malcolm.
I think we're both too tired, that's all. In the evenings, we're both too tired to talk. And Barbara, she never allows me to suggest anything about the house or about the kids. We always have the same arguments. She's got her own opinions, and that's it. Last night we had another row. She's forbidden the kids to ride their bikes to school.
Why?
She thinks they're too young to ride in the traffic, but I think they should. She always complains about collecting them from school. But you can't wrap children in cotton wool, can you?
A funny thing happened to me. A funny thing happened to me last Friday. I'd gone to London to do some shopping. I wanted to get some Christmas presents, and I needed to find some books for my course at college. You see, I'm a student. I caught an early train to London, so by early afternoon I'd bought everything that I wanted. Anyway, I'm not very fond of London, all the noise and traffic, and I'd made some arrangements for that evening. So I took a taxi to Waterloo Station. I can't really afford taxis, but I wanted to get the 3:30 train. Unfortunately, the taxi got stuck in a traffic jam, and by the time I got to Waterloo, the train had just gone. I had to wait an hour for the next one. I bought an evening newspaper, The Standard, and wandered over to the station buffet. At that time of day, it's nearly empty, so I bought a coffee and a packet of biscuits, chocolate biscuits. I'm very fond of chocolate biscuits. There were plenty of empty tables, and I found one near the window. I sat down and began doing the crossword. I always enjoy doing crossword puzzles. After a couple of minutes, a man sat down opposite me. There was nothing special about him, except that he was very tall. In fact, he looked like a typical city businessman. You know, dark suit and briefcase. I didn't say anything, and I carried on with my crossword. Suddenly, he reached across the table, opened my packet of biscuits, took one, dipped it into his coffee, and popped it into his mouth. I couldn't believe my eyes. I was too shocked to say anything. Anyway, I didn't want to make a fuss, so I decided to ignore it. I always avoid trouble if I can. I just took a biscuit myself and went back to my crossword. When the man took a second biscuit, I didn't look up and I didn't make a sound. I pretended to be very interested in the puzzle. After a couple of minutes, I casually put out my hand, took the last biscuit, and glanced at the man. He was staring at me furiously. I nervously put the biscuit in my mouth and decided to leave. I was ready to get up and go when the man suddenly pushed back his chair, stood up, and hurried out of the buffet. I felt very relieved and decided to wait 2 or 3 minutes before going myself. I finished my coffee, folded my newspaper, and stood up. And there, on the table where my newspaper had been, was my packet of biscuits.
Polite requests. Max Millwall used to be a popular comedian on British radio. He's nearly 70 now, but he still performs in clubs in the Midlands and north of England. He's on stage now at the All-Star Variety Club in Wigan.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and others. It's nice to be back in Wigan again. Well, I have to say that. I say it every night. I said it last night. The only trouble was that I was in Birmingham. I thought the audience looked confused. Actually, I remember Wigan very well indeed. Really. You know, the first time I came here was in the 1930s. I was very young and very shy. Thank you, Mother. No, you can't believe that, can you? Well, it's true. I was very young and very shy. Anyway, the first Saturday night I was in Wigan, I decided to go to the local dance hall. You remember the old Majestic Ballroom in Withenshaw Street? There's a multi-storey car park there now. It was a lovely place, always full of beautiful girls. The ballroom, not the car park. Of course, most of them are grandmothers now. Oh, you were there too, were you, love? I was much too shy to ask anyone for a dance, so I sat down at a table and I thought I'd watch for a while. You know, see how the other lads did it. At the next table there was a lovely girl in a blue dress. She'd arrived with a friend, but her friend was dancing with someone. This bloke came over to her. He was very posh, wearing a dinner jacket and a bow tie. Well, he walked up to her and said, "Excuse me, may I have the pleasure of the next dance?" She looked up at him. She had lovely big blue eyes and said, "Eh? What did you say?" So he said, "I wonder if you would be kind enough to dance with me. If you don't mind." No, thank you very much," she replied. A few minutes later, this other chap arrived. He had a blue suit, a nice tie, a little moustache. He gave her this big smile and said, "Would you be so kind as to have the next dance with me?" "Pardon?" she said. I thought to myself, she's a bit deaf, or maybe she hasn't washed her ears recently. "Would you mind having the next dance with me?" he said, a bit nervously this time. No thanks, love. I'm finishing my lemonade," she replied. Blimey, I thought, this looks a bit difficult. Then this third fella came over. He was very good looking, you know, black teeth, white hair. Sorry, I mean, white teeth, black hair. "May I ask you something?" he said, ever so politely. "If you like," she answered. Could I... No, might I have the next dance with you?" "Oh, sorry," she said. "My feet are aching. I've been standing up all day at the shop." By now I was terrified. I mean, she said no to all of them. Then this fourth character thought he'd try. "Would you like to dance?" he said. "What?" she replied. She was a lovely girl, but I didn't think much of her voice. "Do you want to dance?" he said. She looked straight at him. "No," she said. "That's all. No." Well, I decided to go home. I was wearing an old jacket and trousers, and nobody would say that I was good looking. Just as I was walking past her table, she smiled. "Dance?" I said. "Thank you very much," she replied. And that was that. It's our 40th wedding anniversary next week.
Polite requests.
Mike?
Yes?
Shut the door, will you? It's freezing in here.
Right. Sorry.
Karen,
Yes?
lend me 20p. I left my purse in the office.
Oh, OK. Here you are.
Thanks.
Excuse me, could you pass me the sugar?
Oh, yes, of course. There you are.
Thank you very much.
Can I help you?
Oh, thank you. Would you mind putting my case on the rack?
Not at all. There you are.
Oh, thank you so much. You're very kind.
Excuse me, it's a bit stuffy in here. Do you mind if I open the window?
No, I don't mind at all. I feel like some fresh air too.
Excuse me, Mrs. Howe. May I ask you something?
Yes, Wendy. What is it?
May I have the day off next Friday?
Well, we're very busy. Is it important?
Yes, it is really. It's my cousin's wedding.
Oh, well, of course you can.
Can I help you, sir?
I beg your pardon?
Can I help you, sir?
Oh, no. No, thank you. I'm just, looking.
Good morning.
Good morning. I wonder if you can help me. I'm trying to find a Christmas present for my father.
Might I suggest a tie?
Perhaps. Could you show me some ties?
Excuse me.
Yes?
I wonder if you'd be kind enough to get me one of those tins on the top shelf. I can't reach it.
Certainly. There you are.
Thank you very much indeed.